Let me start by again thanking the members who are testifying for their leadership on what I believe is the most significant challenge facing our nation in the 21st century, which is our runaway deficit spending and unsustainable national debt that threatens not only our economy, but our national security, our way of life, our leadership in the world, and everything good about America's influence, and our children's future. I think it's worth repeating some of the startling statistics that demonstrate just how fragile the situation is and just how bad off we are from a fiscal standpoint. 120% debt to GDP. This is the highest level of indebtedness in the history of our country, surpassing World War II, and we're not at war. We're in relative peace and prosperity, and it's only going to get worse. The CBO projection 30 years out has our indebtedness at twice the size of the largest economy in the world. Our annual deficits have reached almost $2 trillion this past year. CBO projects them to double. We will add $20 trillion if we just keep the policies as they are today. $20 trillion. 10 years. Now hear this, half of that $20 trillion is interest expenses alone. Chairman, we don't get another soldier or sailor equipped for battle. We don't sustain the senior safety net. We get nothing for that. And the interest, according to CBO, will triple. It was almost $750 billion this past year. It's projected to be $1 trillion. We will eclipse what we spend on national defense on interest alone. If that's not enough to wake all of us up and give us the sense of urgency to act, I don't know what will. No responsible leader can look at the rapid deterioration of our balance sheet, the CBO projection of these unsustainable deficits, and the long-term unfunded liabilities of our nation and not feel compelled to intervene and change course. No responsible leader can do that. As I said from the outset, this is the 21st century challenge for America. I believe this is our generation's world war, and the cost of losing this war will be catastrophic and irreparable. And I have 3 children. I imagine many of you have children and grandchildren, and they're counting on us to step up and be leaders and work together to solve the problem. If we don't have this sense of urgency, we don't have a plan, if we don't exercise the political courage to execute the plan, we will be the first generation of leaders to fail to leave the country better than we found it. What a sad commentary. I refuse to accept that, and I know you do too. As I said before, this isn't a Republican or Democrat problem. This is our collective problem to solve, and it is a mathematic reality that will require real leadership on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers. Unfortunately, over the last several years, maybe even the last few decades, too many Americans have become desensitized to the trillions of dollars of accumulating debt, and too many lawmakers have been disengaged with the false sense of security that we can continue down this treacherous fiscal path without any real consequence. However, the past 2 years, I think, have provided a wake-up call. Record spending, $11 trillion, 6 of which has been added to the national debt, has resulted in a cost of living crisis for the American people. And because of inflation and because of soaring interest rates, the American people are waking up to the bad fiscal and monetary policies that are impacting their own pocketbooks. And that's not there's a silver lining there because they're engaged in this, which means we might have a fighting chance to actually address it together. As I've said before, this trajectory we're on is unsustainable, but it's not unfixable. And I believe that. But both parties have to acknowledge they've contributed to it. Mr. McGovern, the Republicans have made their fair share of contributions to get us in this financial mess, and I say it at every hearing. We don't get a pass. We don't get a pass. And 7 years since I've been here, I've watched it. Waiving pay-fors, waiving spending caps, and the list goes on of fiscal recklessness and irresponsibility of both parties. So, now that I've called out both sides, Mr. Ranking Member. I don't think a fiscal commission is the panacea for all of our financial woes. I just don't think there's a silver bullet. At the end of the day, we have to have the political courage as a body to cut through the brinkmanship, the weaponization, the fear-mongering that we get from the outside and the inside. And we have to hold hands, as they say, and move forward with courage for the sake of our seniors who are now in jeopardy of insolvency in two very important safety net programs that they rely on, but also for our children. I know I'm going over time. I can see you kind of getting restless, but I'm just getting warmed up. No, I'm kidding. But guys, I've met with a lot of interest groups, some of them with a very righteous cause, many of them with a mutual interest. I've yet to meet with the people who represent my children. I've yet to meet with the people who are concerned about a country that has been bankrupted because of our recklessness. We're sowing the wind, and our children will reap the whirlwind of this fiscal disaster if we don't work together and do it quickly. So we're going to evaluate these proposals. We're going to look for common themes. We're going to ask a lot of questions about the various contours and constructs and structural designs so that if we can move forward with a bipartisan, bicameral fiscal commission, even though I don't think there's a silver bullet out there, maybe, just maybe, it will provide a forum, Ed Case, for constructive, like real constructive, not posing for cameras and posturing for different groups, but real constructive dialogue that could lead to a real outcome with a real impact on the national debt and put us on a more sustainable path for the sake of our great country and our children. Amen? And the people said, amen. With that, I yield as much time as my ranking member shall desire to make his opening remarks.
Well, thank you.